Welcome to the Religiously Offensive Podcast.
There's no word that someone could say to me that I would just be like, I would just scoff and I'd just be like, how dare you say those words? Like, I'm like, you might say something dumb and it's like, but it's like, I'm not going to literally be like, can you please not say that?
If they're saying something like intentionally to try and hurt you, then yeah, you're going to be like,
well,
that was
for sure. But just like a word used in like context, just random, you know, it's just like, there's not a single word that I would just be like, I'm so offended to use that word. Like,
for sure.
Well,
I just don't have that bone in my body.
I think it has to do with minority groupings. So like the people that are not like mentally handicapped way outnumber the people that are. So as soon as you get into that category where you're talking about someone who's in that minority group, it becomes dicey.
That's true, but at the same time, it's like if someone's like, that's gay, I'm not like, why'd you say that?
But that was going to be one of my examples because
really
it's like
that
because it was such a common part of our upbringing that like it'll get thrown around every now and then. But Gab's just chill. Like she's just like because it's like I know the intent
person by person.
Yeah, like I know it's like it's obvious when it's directed at someone in a derogatory way, which is never okay. But it's like I don't know. Sometimes it's like it's nice to stir this pot and just kind of like throw it out there and just
Sometimes you just kind of clench and like.
It's good to like
somebody gonna say something.
Yeah,
it's like those duck feathers, where the water just flings right off. It's good to just like practice like words just bounce. It's like I'm rubber and you're glue.
Yeah, when I know
the duck feathers.
It's fascinating.
Duck feathers. Where'd you hear that?
Yeah, where'd that come from?
Because ducks never get wet.
That was just
but they live in the water.
How do you know?
I've
wondered that. Wicks right on.
I've wondered that about certain animals.
Have you ever pet a duck and they're just straight up dry?
Well, not petted a lot of ducks. My boy Tyler Berger, growing up, they had a lot of ducks on his pond. Still never really touched them though.
Have you ever heard of two-turnt Tony?
Yeah, with this.
For our followers, don't look that up.
Or do. I think it's a hilarious follow. And Mask Girl.
Yeah, Ski the Mask Girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he'll like. Never mind. We can talk about this later.
He's awesome.
But he has a duck that he has in most of his videos.
I was like grandparents in the videos, and it will just like he'll get his grandparents to just turn up. Like
but the Ski the Mask Girl, he'll put a golf ball, or she'll put a golf ball in her mouth. She'll lay down, and he'll be right above her with a club, and she'll just put it down, and he'll hit it. But there's one video where like I guess he hit like the top of it, and it came back down, hit her in the forehead. She has a big old lump on her forehead.
I appreciate the dedication, though.
Oh, my gosh.
He's churring out here.
He's got to be paying. I mean, it's not.
No, they've got to be making bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's making bank. He put his dad in retirement and paid off his sister's student loans with OnlyFans.
I know. That's what, like, I swear, like, if I could go back, I would have, like, just got to my, like, F it stage way earlier, where it's just
so he has an OnlyFans?
He has an OnlyFans, yeah. And he was like, I just got my first OnlyFans paycheck, and I'm going to take 20,000 of it, not the whole thing.
20,000 of it.
Yeah, I'm going to take 20,000 of it and pay off my student.
So what does he do on his OnlyFans? Is it sexual or is it just?
Oh yeah, I mean like,
yeah,
pretty
interesting.
Two-turnt Tony.
Two-turnt Tony.
Can imagine with that man.
I mean, he literally just parties for a living. Yeah, it's wild.
What a time to be alive.
Listen. That's what I hope we could do someday.
But it's great because everyone loves his whole family now. They got two-turnt daddy. And then everyone loves his mom because she just yells about the fact that he won't buy a house with all this money to get out of her house. People love it.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that just means that
shout out
he's going to be there
Tony.
forever. Yeah. Even longer.
Come on the pod if you got a free hour.
You can come pay off my loans.
Yeah.
That is funny. Yeah.
Ducks. That's what got us there.
Ducks. Yeah, no, because it almost seems like they've got like Scotch Guard on their feathers. Like they just don't. And do any feathers get wet? I think feathers are just.
I've never pet a duck.
What are they made of? They should.
Yeah, because birds can still, well, probably not often, but fly in the rain, I would assume.
They should make scuba diving outfits out of feathers.
Yeah. God just made it real slick like that.
You still gonna be able to scuba dive with the feathers?
I don't know. Maybe just out of the stuff feathers are made of. Like the little...
Just cover yourself
tiny
in feathers and jump into the ocean with a
But I don't think when people are jumping in the ocean, they're just like, I love doing this, but I hate getting wet. They're not saying that. So I don't think they care.
It's not so much that. I think it's, and I wonder how warm feathers insulate you, because the biggest thing, the reason people wear wetsuits is for temperature, because ocean can be stupid cold.
Just like the further you go down, the colder it is.
Oh, yeah. And then people will dive like in the, places way up north.
Is it the same with like going, like, when you go higher up a mountain, it's like harder to breathe, right?
Yeah.
Is it the same when you're...
The pressure changes.
Pressure changes, and yeah, it is that way, because think about this. I mean, the only way that anything's warm is because of the sun. Mm-hmm. So the sun can't reach certain depths. I mean, the radiation gets lower and lower as you go down. So it's like,
can't you pop your head like a gusher cold if you come up too fast, like with the pressure?
Yeah, you can. If you're scuba diving and you take in a bunch of air and don't properly like vent as you go up or something. I'm not certified. Speaking of, we all need to get cert.
We can do it at Nate's pool.
I don't think I need to.
You still know that guy?
I think I'm Gucci.
Yeah, I think we're
that'd be
in the
so
driver's
great.
seat on that one.
Dude, I would love to, because
It's good. It's a good thing to have in the back pocket.
Gabby, listen.
You just randomly like...
This is why we're here. We're here to push each other.
Shark diving is for sure my next big
And then
thing.
you're going to be like, I'm so glad I did this, right? Did you ever have any reservations about disc golf?
No.
Okay. What
I was
else?
like, let's get
I
it.
will say, in the beginning, you said to us, yeah, I'm more of a Call of Duty person.
Halo?
Remember we started playing Halo?
Yeah, but I hopped on real quick.
Okay, well,
She sure did.
I'm just saying. I think it's good to push ourselves.
Which, by the way, we're streaking what, 7?
We are streaking 7. The Lord's number.
Do we want to explain what streaking means?
We gotta...
No, I think leave it up to the imagination.
Yeah,
It's fine.
we're streaking.
We're streaking.
We streak nearly daily.
Yeah.
Nearly daily. All it takes is one game.
Yeah.
The new fans on order should be in today.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Yeah, we don't need it. We don't need that happening every day.
I had all the fans set up blowing on it, and then at one point the fans got shut off, and I turned it back, and it wasn't the same after that.
We had a lot of the younglings
Certainly did.
hopping around. Sawyer with his nonsense.
Yeah. And then you're like, someone turned these fans off. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
It's like, well,
Yeah, he was like, "Are you sure
it's only
you
like
didn't turn the
there's only like 3 adults here, and none of us did it. So,
That's great.
yeah.
Because those were their fans that came from, like, they used to be over by, like, that other cubby.
Yeah. Well, they were fans we had in the office for some other reason.
Probably trying to spite us.
Because we had them in the
Stealing
last
my
office.
fans.
Was it like that
Snail
fan? Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought that thing was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snail fan. Did you know James Caan died? Do you know who that is?
Oh,
He was
is that the guy
he
from
was the gangster
Elf?
dude, and he was the dad in Elf.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
him
he
from
was the
Elf,
dad
not
in
the
Elf.
Godfather.
All right.
Oh, yeah, I do know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah. Anyway, no, that's rough. So you can expect this stuff happens in 3s. So who's next?
Oh, dang.
You ever
Who's
heard?
the
You ever heard
first?
that, the 3s thing? Oh, or like celebrities and like people die in like 3s. So normally when someone dies, like there'll be 2 more people after that.
Who was the first?
I'm assuming he's the first.
Oh, you're saying there's
That's
2
what I'm
more to
saying.
come.
2 more's coming.
What about when like Kobe died? Who else died around that time?
I don't remember. I'm sure there's some forum that'll explain it. You
That's
can
wild.
Look it up. Yeah.
That's interesting. Kind of like the 27 Club thing.
What's that?
It's like, is that it? The 27 Club?
I don't know.
You never heard of that? It's like a lot of
R.I.P.
a lot of
Mamba,
famous
though.
people died like at 27.
Is that like the Clinton kill list? Just kidding.
I mean, there's just like I mean, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin,
So
Jim Morrison.
did they die on the 27th? Is that why?
No, at 27, like the age 27.
Oh, just at the okay.
Yeah.
Have you heard of?
Wow, Jimi Hendrix died at 27.
Well, it's like I have to. Who was in Amy Winehouse? Yeah, Amy Winehouse, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain.
Depresses me. All these
Wow.
all these great people like I'm older than
Died
that.
at 27, yeah.
I'm like older than that. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what I was going to ask you? Oh, yesterday. Did you get that text I sent you guys, the picture?
Sure I did.
Maybe.
The dude from Maine, the license plate,
Yeah, I saw that.
toe sucker.
What are the photos underneath the I suck toes comment?
I didn't look closely.
Like a heart.
A heart and a...
Never been a foot guy.
Just doesn't make much sense.
I think it's something doing
Show
something
me
else.
your toes.
Show me your toes. I love feet. Hell
Toe
yeah.
sucker.
Hell yeah, I suck toes.
Is that a woman? Just sticker of a woman?
I don't know, but there's like demon stickers on each side of the license plate.
That's crazy. I saw a car. I took a picture and I didn't send it to you guys. I forgot, but it was like a bunch of like Jesus stickers, and then they had faith, like the word faith, but the letters were drawn out like with guns. I was like, this is great. I should have sent it to you
That's
guys.
hilarious.
That man is the problem.
yeah, for sure.
You will respect my authority.
It's that dude at Ace Hardware that I talked about.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly.
People don't know the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
They
crazy.
Clearly need more of what you have, sir.
They must be part of the same group of people.
More of what you have, yeah.
The anointing is strong with this one.
You would hope that if they went, like, if they were around, like, a bunch of normal people, that someone would be like, hey, man, this kind of just, like, isn't cool. And have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
I think,
Maybe that's happened and he just doesn't care. But
well, he probably got that way by being around people like that. And then people who aren't like that are probably just like, I don't really want to be around this guy.
yeah, I don't want the conflict.
I mean, it's just the natural, like, order of life where you just kind of
Gravitate toward people that think the way you do.
Yeah, echo chambers.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people that are willing to literally be open-minded and question everything. It's Orson Scott Card. I think I might have mentioned this before, but he's the guy that wrote like Ender's Game, which shout out Ender's Game. Terrible movie, but
I don't think I've seen that.
have you read the book? Oh my gosh.
Guess I got to add it to the
You
list.
read the book?
The only book I ever finished in K through 12.
Okay.
Wait, that one and To Kill a Mockingbird. I don't really know why. I think To Kill a Mockingbird was just like
Required.
you can do it. Like I was just like, just finish one.
Wasn't that required for class?
For sure. But I would never actually read the books. I would just,
Ender's
you
Game.
remember Spark Notes?
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
I used Cliff Notes all
Is
the
it
time.
this one? Orson Scott Card?
Yeah, it's literally top. Well, I've only read a few, but it's in my top 3.
I'm going to download it. It's from 1992.
You didn't like the
it's
movie?
I thought the movie was trash.
I thought the movie was good.
It was cool.
The problem is
The
you
ending.
turned into one of those like pretentious like book readers that's like the book is so much better.
And I'm not even that guy, but
But you finished that book, so you are
I have
for
to
that
be.
book.
Yeah. It's the only opportunity I have to be that guy. But incredible book. So I want to spoil it for you so bad, but I won't because
Yeah,
it's
don't.
just
I
such
just
a
downloaded
cool.
it.
I saw the movie.
It's such a cool
Is it different?
concept. Just the ending. I don't know. Maybe I just
Is
pretended
the
I was
ending
like
different than the movie?
No, not really. But no.
But the ending was like, well, regardless of the movie, the ending, like just to think about how it ended, you're like, whoa, that's crazy.
Well, yeah. Hang on, I'm pulling up this quote now. But this is a quote I love. I heard someone say it, and it kind of just stuck with me. And he says, "This is how humans are. We question all our beliefs except for the ones that we really believe in and those we never think to question." And it's just like there's certain things that we'll just like be super skeptical about and question. And there's like skepticism can be on a spectrum. Like sometimes it can be negative if you're more so closed-minded. But like there's a healthy skepticism about anything and everything. And I think like things that are actually, when you're talking about truth, like those things should have to withstand like healthy skepticism.
Yeah, if you are a skeptic, that's leaning more on the realm of being negative because you just question everything, right? All the time.
That's how it's perceived.
And then the other, well, I would say you shouldn't like question literally everything.
Well, 'cause-
like, I mean, because
What
then
shouldn't be questioned is my question.
Well, I'm just saying at the end of that end of the spectrum, then you start believing in every conspiracy you hear of, right? So That's
you're
like
saying if you
that
just believe
far end
everything
of the
point blank?
No, skepticism. So if you're skeptic about like the government or you don't trust things or whatever, you're always going to read into like the counter argument, the counter story, whether it's made up or not.
Well, so I would argue that at least the way I feel about it is like I don't trust any of it. Like in the sense of like all of this stuff that's being put out there, it's like there is a person or a group that is trying to get an agenda across, like the news, for example. It's like no matter what news station you watch, for the most part, it's like there's an agenda or there's a slant one way or the other. Now it's actually becoming more popular where with podcasts, like people like Rogan, like there's genuinely like what I would consider him like a skeptic, but in a healthy way, where it's just like, we're going to ask questions. And so even with the crazy conspiracies, it's like, we're going to ask the questions. It's like, there's never really just a blind faith.
So skeptic, but open-minded, I would say is probably the healthy place.
For sure.
Yeah. And there would, on either side of the spectrum is bad.
Because that's the thing. It's like, you know, especially when it comes to religion and growing up in a religious like family or, you know, whatever. And the word religion and religious gets a bad connotation. I'm just talking about just an organized faith. But growing up in that, like it's bad to question. Mm-hmm. But it's like, and we've talked about this a million times, but the danger of never questioning it is it just never becomes your own. And so you essentially just piggyback onto your parents' faith or the faith community you grew up in. And then, you know, at least my experience, I just struggled with following the rules because it was just like, I never really questioned this. And then things happen and I kind of want to do other things, but I'm like not allowed to do those, but I want to. So I'm gonna.
I think the whole thing with the skepticism thing in the faith and not being able to ask questions, which is the whole thing we're trying to fight against here, is combat, is when you bring up something that someone just automatically just quotes scripture to you. Typically, it's just like, well, that's just the enemy sowing seeds of doubt. Mm-hmm. Instead of actually answering or talking about the question or, you know, talking through stuff.
Exactly. Because
then at that point, that person has just made it clear to you that they literally have to like block out all of that, or because their faith is weak. I mean, people like that, people who just quote scripture like that, in my opinion, have a weak faith. Like they're scared to dig into that, you know, because they're afraid of what they're going to find. Mm-hmm.
Well, and there's also probably a fear of like, if I go through this process and I don't end up on the same team, is there going to be like, am I going to be ostracized? Am I going to be looked at differently because I landed somewhere else in a spiritual sense?
That's tough because,
and then because of that, now all of those people from your previous world, you're like number one on their list of like, we got to reach them. Just creates a really kind of just interesting dynamic.
No, and the way they're going to try to reach you is to try to send you Bible verses and
sermons, and
it's just like, and then at that point, like, because here's the deal, like if you go on so long, like not being able to ask these things, and then all of a sudden you're like not buying it, sending people scriptures isn't going to do anything. This is like, hey, I told you I don't buy this, like, you know what I mean, like, you know.
It's like
I'm not saying that for me, but I'm just saying in general, like if you're saying that you're not believing in this,
right?
It's just like we were saying, like you can't use the Bible as an argument to believe in the Bible.
Circular reasoning.
So it's you know.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, that's real interesting.
There's this is probably too long. There was
That's what she. Okay, sorry.
I don't know if this is worth reading all of this. And probably a lot of people would not agree, but this was an excerpt from a book that someone sent me. And honestly, shout out Carly from St. Pete, absolute gem. Known her for a long time, but she's like a similar kind of thinker. She is a pretty devout Christian as far as I know, but like really does a good job of just balancing that whole like, I don't know, healthy skepticism thing. Like she landed there, but it's like she kind of had a similar experience or journey.
Yeah.
But let's see. So I don't know. Do I want to read this whole book? Not this whole
book.
page?
No, just read a couple ideas.
says, rely on your own judgment, be true to your own conscience, follow the light that's within you. All outward lights are so many will-o-wisps. There will be those who will tell you that you're foolish, that your judgment is faulty, that your conscience is all awry, and that the light within you is darkness. But heed them not. If what they say is true, the sooner you, as a searcher for wisdom, will find it out. The better you can make the discovery only by bringing your power to the test. Therefore, pursue your course bravely. Your conscience is at least your own, and to follow it is the path to freedom. To follow the conscience of another is to be condemned to slavery. You will have many falls, will suffer many wounds, will endure many buffetings buffetings, that's an interesting word. Many buffetings for a time, but press on in faith, believing that sure and certain victory lies ahead. Yeah, I don't really need it. Keep going. Yeah. But it's just like a thing where it's the line that really hit me was that it's like to follow the conscience of another is to be condemned to slavery.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this video I saw the other day. This guy, he was explaining, he was like, if somebody came up to you and was like, I hate your blue hair. He was like, I hate your blue hair. You'd be like, what? Like, I don't have blue hair. She was like, why? When someone was just like, you're ugly or you're not good enough and you like, why do you believe those things? If you truly know yourself, you're like, well, that's not how I feel about myself. That's not who I am, who I know I am. Why do you let it affect you? Why do I believe you? Because if you were to say like your blue hair looks ugly, you're just like, that doesn't affect you at all because you know you don't have blue hair.
Oh, wow. I like that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like doing that work to really learn how to love yourself. We've talked about it before, but like the 2 great commandments is essentially 3, or it's love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. Well, it's like, if you don't love yourself, of course you're going to treat people like trash. So when people treat you like trash, it's more or less reflection and projection of how they feel about them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And then one of the things that when you were reading that, it hit me, and I have to gather the thought again because I was actively listening to you.
I love that.
I just have to keep reminding you that I am doing that.
Me?
No. Oh, Justin.
Okay, as I was saying,
he had brought it up before. We had brought this up before. That's why I was looking at. I looked at you and was talking to Justin.
I'm the worst at it.
That's like earlier when I said I was going to walk into your office and you were going to say something stupid. I was thinking about Justin.
I got you. That makes more sense. No, so what hit me when you were reading that is just when you I'm trying to think of like my thought. It was like
follow the light within.
Yeah. So when all of a sudden, like, if you said that, like, people will try to tell you that it's darkness, right? Mm-hmm. And so when someone does that, I don't understand the logic, like, that people have. Like, it's just like a common sense thing. If you tell someone that what they're feeling is darkness within and they need to expel it, if that person is just like the way they feel, it's like who they are, it's just like, well, maybe I'm just darkness then. Mm-hmm. Like, how many superhero movies like have a villain that got that way because people just kept telling them that they were bad, right? So
for sure,
instead of like
creating the monster,
walking with someone, you're basically like saying like, no, you just need to stop, being you and doing this or thinking this way. And at that point, it's like that person's gonna shut off or go and become a supervillain. So. Yeah, it's just not productive.
Well, there's another quote. I don't even know who said it, but it was one of those things that just stuck with me. And he was just saying, believers are often found in groups, but seekers are often on their own. Mm-hmm. Where it's just like we all want to belong and have a community of people who have similar beliefs or worldviews, but it's like that one just resonated with me because it's just like. I don't know why. I always just like question, like, why wasn't it just enough? Like, life would have been great. I could have just bought it, been all in. I'd be chilling. But there's just something in me where I'm just like.
Probably because of how much it was forced into you. You're just like, why was this forced on me so much? It probably put a bad taste in your mouth.
Well, maybe. And yeah, when I really think about it, it's like, okay, so you turn. At least my upbringing taught me that the most important thing in life is realizing that like there's another life after this. And if you don't figure it out in this life, you're screwed. And so for something that's that important, right, they would frame it as the most important thing. And so I'm just like, I just had this moment where I was just like, I don't even know if I believe this. And this is supposed to be the most important thing I could ever ponder, think about, or search for. It's like,
yeah,
this is the most important thing. Like, I gotta figure this out.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the scriptures and it's like, seek me and you will find me when you seek me with all of your heart type of things, where it's like, there is like these verses that lean on this like certainty of like, if you really want to know, you'll figure it out. So, and then again, I just never gave myself the freedom to really question, or it was probably more, not like insecurity, but like optics. I didn't want, backlash to come on, like, not even me, but mostly like my family. Like, I didn't want, because that's just the way we do things, right? Like, parents will feel like failures if their kids like walk away from the faith.
Right.
And you're just like, I don't see it that way. I think more than anything, it's beautiful that we can be just individuals. Like, it's like, you shouldn't believe everything your parents believe. Like, you should have this seeking and searching kind of climb. It's like the hero's journey. You got to go off, go through rites of passage, and you come back and like, you are so firm in your conviction that it's like, now you can actually like make a life that's going to make a difference.
Yeah. And I get paranoid or scared that I'm going to be a bad parent if I don't let my kid explore and make his own decision. So I'm on the opposite side of that. It's just like, I'm not going to feel like a failure if Lincoln is just rejecting or whatever, or doing what, I'm using him as an example, but if I allow him to explore and, ask questions, I mean, he's just going to feel so much more secure in who he is and what he believes.
Right.
And that's kind of my goal with it. Right.
I feel like that's a very healthy goal.
Yeah. I mean, I think as parents, we all kind of like hope where your kid's going to land. Like, right. Like, I hope they get a good job. I hope they can provide for their family. I hope they can do this and that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're providing like, you're building confidence in himself, right? To know that he can make his own decisions, that you guys are supportive of it, as long as.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you build confidence in your child, how do they go wrong?
There's probably a better chance that he's not going to, end up some weird situation. But
yeah.
I mean, yeah, at least that's my thought. And then, the other part of it is I want him to be able to come to me. Mm-hmm. Because when you force your kids to believe something, I just feel like, I just seen it in so many friends. They're not going to go to their parents or talk to them about stuff.
Sure.
They're
scared.
They're going to go to other friends.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the main subject I wanted to talk about today was
are we just now getting to the main subject?
How long we been going?
We are.
Almost an hour.
Well, I would say we covered some cool stuff just earlier on. Okay. Yeah. This was kind of like the initial idea for this podcast, right? So I will say this was kind of what I was originally thinking. Maybe not main. I don't know, that's the wrong way to put it, but we were going to talk about volunteer abuse in church. So this is when you have, a church and you're a volunteer or someone's a volunteer, and ultimately they end up leaving, feeling burnout. They feel like, the people, they feel like betrayed in a way, because it gets to this point where, someone just feels like they're being abused, not necessarily, not physically or verbally or anything, but just, they're being taken advantage of, right? So that's kind of like the term abuse. That's what it would mean in this context. Between that, there's also some other like minor subjects that fall under that category, but that's kind of the big overarching thing in understanding, how this takes place and how common it is. I mean, it's very common. But I don't know, like you want to give a specific situation maybe you can recall?
Yeah, actually, I would pose it as a question to Gabby. I would be interested in just your initial reaction to like if this were to happen.
So you were in Jehovah's Witness.
To you.
I hate you.
Not going there.
I hate you. I'm going to come knock on your door one day.
in a little black
suit. Talk about the Lord.
She's going to find a nice little boy to come with her, ride bikes, and going to knock on your door. Turn or burn, baby. Okay, so Gabby, say you walk into a church, you're kind of seeking, you're trying to figure out.
Stop there. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Hypothetically.
Just kidding.
VR. This is VR. All right, so
Second Life.
yeah. So you walk into a church because you're kind of seeking, you're trying to figure out this spiritual thing, whatever. Let's say you have a really cool experience and you kind of want to like, you know, plant the roots of your life in this community. Sure. Or at least that's kind of, you're like, hey, I think I might like give this a shot, right? So then what they do is they're just like, hey, join us after service, like for lunch, and like basically go through this, we call it next steps, right? So it's like a 4-week experience where after each service, there's like 4 steps of like, the first one's kind of like, we'll tell you a little bit about who we are and what we believe and how we spend money, like try to be transparent. We're just kind of like, hey, this is who we are, what we believe, and this is how the money is spent and used, right? So a little transparency, just try to get you more familiar with what's going on. Then the next steps, they're just kind of going a little bit more. And then the final step is like, basically now it's time to get involved and find a team to serve on, because like the point of, you know, this life is a life of like servanthood, right? Like what the Bible would teach about Jesus. So it's like, so you come to a new place, you stick around for next steps, and then all of a sudden 4 weeks later, they like plug you into some team, and then all of a sudden like you're on some rotation and you're coming every other week to like wave at a door or like help set up chairs or do something like that. Like, just off like surface value, like how would you feel about experience like that process?
Yeah, I'd probably get vibes of like, is this an internship or is this me trying to find, like, is this me trying to expand spiritually?
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't go back to that church, honestly. Like if I'm going to church, like I'm going there, like to do the things that you're talking to me about, like in these next 4 steps, like if I like you guys, right? If I like everybody there, I'm going to do those things voluntarily, right? Mm-hmm, yeah. Like if I love the church, if I love the people that are there, if I believe everyone, like I'm going to do that. I'm going to naturally want to do that. Yeah. I'm going to want to be a part of the community more. Yeah. But someone basically be like, hey, welcome. Like, let's hang out afterwards and talk a little bit about your next steps here. And be like, I'm sorry.
Like, every church does it. Like, it's
my
next
steps is to potentially come next Sunday.
Yeah.
And meet everybody and get to know everybody. But yeah, no, that'd probably rub me the wrong way, because I feel like it should be something that you want to do voluntarily.
No, I think, I agree, and I think that is everyone's natural tendency. They feel invested in a community. They feel like that they are being enriched by being a part of this community. They want to contribute, right? That's
give back.
The natural, yeah. And I would say that's probably a bigger, from my experience, right? I've dealt with a lot of churches, but it's my experience that there's a bigger problem with smaller churches than it is for bigger ones.
Just trying to,
because
especially like mobile churches,
you don't have the help. Yeah, it's hard to find the help.
Yeah.
So that.
But what are you doing wrong then? Because I feel like people would want to help
if it was genuine,
if it's, a good community. It's like,
well, and even
it's just like us. Like anytime somebody needs something here, like we want to help each other.
Mm-hmm. Like, because it's reciprocated. Like at some point, if you're just helping this organization so much and you don't feel like you're really getting back what you feel like you're putting in,
right?
The problem is you're going to start.
You're like, these are my people, so like I'm willing to help because they're going to help me. Like we're all supporting each other.
And the problem, so then you eventually. And then you don't want to talk about it because you don't want to be the guy that's complaining, because we're supposed to be like, serve with a joyful heart, like you don't want to be the guy that's like, yo, this is BS.
I need that
like,
in a meme.
He's got
right.
Serve with a joyful heart.
But it's like, so I agree. Not that everyone necessarily, maybe healing isn't the right word or the process, but like when someone comes into the community, like sometimes they just need time. And a lot of times they probably come in with baggage. They come in with like shame or like a lot of stuff, or fears, things that they're worried about. And it's like, dude, like just these people just kind of need some time to breathe.
Yeah.
Like they need to really feel like loved on without like, because when it's just like week 1, join us, and then like it ends in like, to me that feels very manipulative.
Well, the church I go to now, it was a breath of fresh air when I came down here, because I came from a church plant that intentionally or non-intentionally, I was just burnt out.
It's a lot of work.
I was doing the same thing for 3 years. First one there, last one leave, and it was just a lot. It was a hard time keeping volunteers.
I mean, it's like an 8-hour day, yeah.
Yeah.
By the time you like set up, have services, tear down.
And I think it's different when you're a staff person,
for sure,
trying to build volunteer teams, and then when you're like a volunteer leading a volunteer team, because it's like, all right, guys, I'm not gaining anything from this. So I feel like it should be easier for that person to like, keep volunteers, but then anyway, that's a deeper reason why a lot of those people were difficult to keep. But with a lot of that, when I came to a bigger church, I moved to Orlando, became a part of a bigger church, and maybe not all big churches are like this, but it was just like they were very respectful of my schedule, my time, my desire to serve. It was like, you want to serve, you can serve as much as you want, you can serve, least as you want, just whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was nice, because at one point things kind of scale when you get to a bigger,
mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like I would say,
get more infrastructure.
I would say at any point, as far as greeters go, there's probably 6 greeters. You know what I mean? Because there's a limited number of doors, but in a small church, you may have the same amount. Mm-hmm. So it's like you have more volunteer, like a pool of people to, that volunteers would kind of rise up out of. So the smaller churches, it's a really hard thing. Like you were saying with church plants, with the mobile churches and all that, especially when there's a lot of setup involved, like manual labor. When people start doing that, they're not getting paid for it. And
when
then
you got to put up a whole PA, that's like a $100,000 PA. That might be a little stretch. Maybe we'll call it 50 grand PA, but it's like you're running all these cables, snakes, like you've got to have 15 plus inputs for like 20 plus. You got to have 6 just for the drums. And like, I mean, doing that every single week, like that's where I got super burnt out, because I had to show up at 6 a.m. and then I wouldn't get out of there till 2. And I was paid to do it. Like, I can't imagine like if you're not, and just, and one thing that's interesting to me is like, I never really thought about it, but I was a part of a church where they really didn't even try to start a church. They just started like kind of these like Sunday night services, but they would just go rent other church buildings that are literally already set up for church.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, we don't need this massive labor force to come in and stack chairs and to build like turn a school into a church. Right. Like it's even popular now to use a lot of these like kind of auditorium, like theater type, like environments at some of the high schools. Cause it's like just the chairs itself, like, dude, it sucks. Like stacking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of chairs and having to place them on the same place on the floor every week. And then then you're done. Then you got to clean it all up. And then you got to take all of these things and like wheel them a quarter mile to the back of the building and then shove them up into this trailer. Like it is trash.
Sounds horrible.
You got some deep memories here.
Yeah.
Bro, I am scored.
He's sweating.
Yeah. But it's like, it was funny because I never even thought about it. Like I was at this last place, and like, they were just like, no, we're just going to rent other buildings, and and I don't know if that was the intention, but it was so like refreshing that it was just like, oh, we just set up a couple like little banners and then we're good.
What's cool is the perspective that it's like an implied perspective, and then you automatically assume that the leadership cares about their people and cares about not burning out their people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they put their money and resources into that over, the typical, we need to hire a youth pastor, we need to do this, we need to do this.
Dude, there's whole companies that like literally are called like Church in a Box, and like for 50 G's, like they will give you like all the crates that are on wheels and like everything that goes in them. It's just like, we've made it too easy, and like people think that's just the only way to do a mobile or plan a church, right? Like, I don't know if it's just, and I'm probably just assuming and putting kind of a blanket over this whole thing. I'm sure that's not how it always goes, but like, it's just weird that there's not more people that are like willing to like think outside the box or like push against I think there's
an old school mentality that's been like beat into people's heads too, that it's just like stuff we deal with real estate. People think that buying and having your own assets and the things that you own, physically have, is a greater investment than leasing. Mm-hmm. So they'd rather spend, $800 a month leasing a gymnasium for 4 weekends, and you have to bring in everything, and then you buy all your stuff. They see that as more valuable and wasting less money than spending $5,000 a month, renting like a proper or leasing a proper facility,
like a venue. Yeah, that's already set up for
it. So which is a stupid way to think. I mean, the $5,000's worth it. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just throwing that number out there. Maybe it's 10. I don't know, 15. But like, it's worth it, right? I mean, it's worth if you can spend the money, it is definitely worth it. Like, because you're not going to burn people out.
Well, the schools do not give churches haircuts. Like, like what it costs to just rent like an elementary school.
Yeah,
you're just like, I'm 100% confident that a church would take half of this.
Yeah,
and then we wouldn't have to do anything other than just get there. Because I think that's the thing. It's like the problem is your volunteer force, or your dream team is what everyone likes to call them. Your dream team is like that's your actual church. Like that's like the core, right? Because those are the people that are actually invested to want to give back, and not just coming in, fueling up and then dipping.
Yeah.
So those are the most important people. And how do we just not even think that, like, have you even had a real conversation with like your dream team? If you're a leader, like, are you actually like, and do they even feel comfortable enough to really be honest with you? Because that's the other half of the problem. Like, even if you're like, hey man, how you doing? You're feeling burnt out. Most people probably just be like, I'm great. I don't, I'm good. Like,
all right.
Yeah. As they're suffocating spiritually, like they're just like, we're good.
They're bleeding out.
Yeah. And it's just like, you have to build a relationship with people as a leader where they actually, because the problem is then you just get burnt out. You just go somewhere else.
Yeah. I saw this, there's this thing here on, are you making disciples or abusing volunteers? And then down the list, it says, I thought of at least 5 ways we can transition from using and abusing to raising up and releasing. First of all, I like that idea of releasing.
Yes.
I like the idea of, if you can think of your whole volunteer list, granted, you may have close relationships with some of the volunteers. That's different. But if there's any of those people on your team that you think, I don't know how I would do this without that person, it's probably, it may not be a healthy environment for that volunteer because you're depending on them too much.
Yeah.
To where at that point, then the volunteer feels like they don't have a choice. They have to be there or the show doesn't go on. Right.
Right.
But anyway, and some of these churches focus on too much and then they don't focus on other ones. Like, so if you were to say these are like the 5, but this is just someone's opinion, connect the ministry activity to a higher vision. This is one that everyone does. That some churches use to manipulate people.
You're not serving people, you're serving the Lord.
Yeah, this is a privilege. This is an opportunity.
Dude. When someone comes out and is like, it is a privilege to serve, I'm just like, bro, this feels like a concentration camp for some of these people. They're not even getting paid. Like, they're just like, they got real jobs. Like, they work.
Yeah.
And then this is their weekend. And like, they're choosing to spend their free time giving you free labor. Like,
it's a privilege not doing this.
Yeah,
what's
sitting on my home,
just going and like sitting in service and dipping. That's a privilege. It's help them discover their gifts. Again, this is more of like a finding your fit type thing. Churches do this. Give them opportunity. This is to fail, make mistakes, take a chance. If all you do is micromanage and use them, they won't last. That's true. I like that idea. Speak constant encouragement. That's something some people do, but express gratitude is the biggest one. That's number 5. And that's something that I feel like
from leadership, you're saying?
Yeah. That's something that like lip service is not enough.
I was just going to say that.
What's that?
It's not, that's basically just saying, oh, we appreciate our volunteer. Like, because a lot of pastors will
sending a nice text. They're just like, they're exhausted.
Yeah,
they just busted out 8 hours of work and you're like, thanks buddy. That was great of you. You're such a valuable member. I'm like, bro, buy me a meal or something.
Yeah, I was about to say, take him to lunch.
Yeah, from the stage. Yeah, or like throw us a party at a family
and not like a one time a year. Like,
take us to Pop Stroke. Oh, we should do that today.
We should. Today?
We should do that today. I just thought of it.
Scratch everything else.
Anyway, it just popped in my mind. Hey, Pop.
We should do that soon.
So express gratitude. So it's just like, yeah, people will do that from the stage and stuff, but yeah, it's almost, and I hate this, like, so it's almost like the pastor will say it from the stage, and then it's just like, you get that sense of like, they feel like, oh, I've expressed my gratitude now. job done.
You ever have dream team rallies where they're just
I've
like,
never had that.
woo, let's get hype. And people are just like, bro, this is a waste of 15 minutes. I have actual things to do to get ready for service.
Yeah.
And you're trying to get me in here to get me pumped up and you're pissing me off, honestly. It's like, I just don't understand how we don't realize the disconnect.
Well, that's like how I feel about church meetings that could have been an email.
For sure.
Especially in a bigger city like this where you have to drive to church. Like, you drive like
man,
20 minutes to a half hour and you're just like, we're serious right now? Like,
You're just like,
next time make a freaking video and send us a link.
oh, man.
I mean, I think churches are getting better at that.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, because here's the other part of the challenge is like, so say you're super involved and you've been serving and then you're just watching like, you watch how much energy and resource goes into like trying to get new people in the door, right? It's like we're going to pay for billboards, we're going to send out mailers, like we do all these things. We abuse our volunteer force to like because we need people out on the road welcoming you in as you drive in, like, and then you have people in the parking lot helping you park. I'm like, it's a parking lot, guys. You park a car in a spot. You really are going to just have someone out there just being like waving like, here you go. It's like they're capable of parking.
they're not morons.
this is not a car wash.
But you literally put someone out there for hours.
Yeah.
And you're just like, guys, completely useless. Yeah. Like, if you don't need it, just give the guy the morning off. Let him enjoy it. Like,
if someone can go to Waterford and find a parking spot and figure out how to navigate that parking situation, like you can go somewhere else. I mean,
but it's like, so when the volunteers are just watching the church spend so much time and energy and resource just trying to impress new people, they're just like, what am I? I'm here making this happen. And like more to your point of the gratitude,
it's like freaking AT&T or DirecTV, like having these deals for new customers.
Bro, like, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And I'm over here paying $100 a month.
Yeah.
And this freaking guy is getting it for 40. Like,
yeah, that's it.
Like, all right,
are you kidding me?
What am I doing?
Screw your loyal customers.
I'm going somewhere else. Like, that's a great analogy. Okay, here's an interesting one too. And I've seen this, not a lot, but I've seen it, and to me, it's one of the most unfortunate things is like, so you have a church plant, right? It's very young, not a lot of people yet, but you've got some rock and rock stars. I don't know why it was so hard for me to find that word.
Rock and rock stars.
Rockin'.
Rack 'em Ralph.
Young rockin'.
Yeah. So, but you have these guys that are like literal like cornerstones and pillars like of your small little organization, and without them, like it literally just wouldn't have happened, right? And I guess I'm speaking more in the context of, because my whole life of serving primarily was within worship and the music and creative aspect, right? So you're a small church, you've got some incredibly loyal and faithful people that are just literally like giving so much to help you build this thing, like free, without asking for anything in return, right? And then you start getting bigger, and then more people come in, and you see it a lot, especially with the music or with anything on the stage, because like that's just stroking the ego. Everyone loves to be on stage. Everyone like whatever, and
some people don't.
That's true.
I don't think Gabby would want to be on the stage.
I don't know.
For what?
For like in a band?
I'd probably do that, yeah.
Yeah.
You would?
If you're musically inclined.
Yeah, I am.
Because a lot of people that grow up and a lot of people that are older, like there's not a lot of places.
High school graduation.
Like once you're out of high school, or like there's not a lot of places to go to play live music on a consistent basis, like where people are going to show up and actually listen to you.
Oh, that's definitely the biggest outlet for people, like amateur musicians.
Yeah,
to play.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, it's to me is just heartbreaking is like as a church grows and then more people come in, and then obviously like you're going to get talented people. They're just a bigger talent pool, right? So then we have worship team auditions, and then we do all this stuff, and then all of a sudden,
that's crazy. After
a couple years later, it's like this person that like literally was like a pillar, and without that person, the church wouldn't even be here. And all of a sudden, it's like they're really not getting any opportunity to play or be a part of the stage or the music because, like literally more gifted people came because we have a bigger talent pool. And then we say things like, "Oh, she is so anointed." It's like, no, she's a better vocalist.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's like people that get slowly pushed out, and it's like, okay, you can help with like with youth music on Wednesday nights, but like Sunday mornings, it's like we're keeping this, like we're gonna raise the bar with our standards, and it's just like, screw that, dude. Like,
yeah,
it's like such a. I just feel dirty like thinking about like you're just, and I only say that because I've seen it with my eyes happen to great people, and it's like they may not be the most gifted, but because there's someone that's maybe a little bit better at singing. It's like all of a sudden their opportunity just totally boom.
So here's the deal. And it goes to this whole like, you know, is mega church branding even a good idea? Because a church gets so big, there's an expectation for excellence. So I agree. Like, I feel like that's a big, more obvious problem in small churches when you have someone who started the church and kind of got you through, like, has served for 5-10 years on staff, or not on staff, but even as a volunteer, like doing worship and all this stuff, and then they just kind of get kicked to the curb. That's a lot more obvious. But when you have like people who have just been going to the church for a long time, say that's a big church, you know, and they get pushed out for, you know, people, some like, you know, hipster guys who like play, you know, more modern styled guitar or whatever, and, you know, just like these people that are just like killer vocalists, and
even as simple as like this guy's like more attractive, trendy, younger,
Has
like
more
it's like this
followers on
is
Instagram.
this is kind of the
there was a church
there's not a big market for like overweight bald worship pastors is what I'm saying.
Dang.
There was a church in Orlando. I won't say what church it was, but they, and this is a person who we knew who had came from that church, who basically had said that they're at one point they basically, and I don't know if it's the same way still, but it's just kind of an unspoken policy, like, hey, once you get to a certain age, we don't want you on the stage. So it's
they straight up said that.
Well,
they wouldn't admit it,
individuals probably they said that, but it wouldn't be like a written policy. You know what I mean? Because that's definitely no. But it's just that's where it's gotten. It's been so commercialized that, you know, we're just like, oh, it needs to have this look, this feel to attract. And their argument is to attract people who wouldn't normally come to church, or who would want to go to the church, who would be attracted to coming to the church. And then they receive the message of Jesus and then hopefully change their heart. But you got to wonder, is, you know, does it further God's kingdom to have top talent on the stage, or is it further bolstering, you know, the natural human tendency to go to the church for the wrong reasons? So I don't know, because I mean, can you imagine going to a church that seats 4,000 people? First of all, you know, it's still my opinion that those churches just shouldn't exist. But like,
it's hard. There's no connection.
You got to have small, like, and to build community, you have to have small. I don't know. Yeah. I just don't think small groups are enough. I'll just say that. But, you know, basically, you know, it's hard to imagine going to a 4,000 person church and, like, you know, the vocalist half the time can't stay on key.
Well, and I guess I'm thinking of like,
it's real hard to imagine.
It's like, let's say someone's like an 8 out of 10, and then you start getting more talent and they're like, oh, we got a bunch of 9s and 10s. So it's like, it's not even like they were bad.
It's not even so much that they're incompetent.
It was just like, oh, we've got newer, shinier toys, kind of a thing. And it's like, we did a whole podcast on this, but like, to me, it goes back to that whole thing of like you're trying to build the church for God. That's not your job. Your job is to raise up and disciple people. And and a lot of times without realizing it is because we're so focused on building the church and not building people that we hurt people in the process of trying to build the church. And then we like wound and scar people because we're doing something that's not even our responsibility. And like, if I did, like, I think about myself in that situation. Like, if I had someone that was there from the beginning that invested so much, and I'm like, this person will always have like opportunities to like lead from stage because like I know who this, like, I trust this person. It's like, I would literally like come out, and I wouldn't like, obviously I wouldn't say like, let's give it up for this person. Like, yeah, we know she's like not as good as the other person, but like, yeah, like I wouldn't say that obviously, but it's like, I I would just highlight multiple people every Sunday or every morning or every service. Just be like, can we just like give it up for this person? They've literally been here for like 10 years. Can you imagine?
You know what?
Like 10 years and just honoring people for their actual commitment.
Part of it is
instead of just honoring like the gift.
Yeah. Well, part of it, it's like chicken and the egg. Is it our church is doing this because of the people, or people act this way because of the church? And I'm saying
Both.
When I say act this way, it's a lot of people's fault when they go to church and then all of a sudden they start talking to their little cohort or whatever, their group of people within the church they consider their community. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, where's this guy been for a while? I like when he leads worship.
Right.
Or I like this person. Oh man, I love when they play guitar. Or I love this drummer.
Oh, this guy's speaking this week. I'm going to take a week off.
He's so fun to watch. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, yeah, right. We do all of that. And it's just like, so are we just playing into the materialism aspect of the church and are just being like, just having the shallow perspective on, if this guy stops leading worship, I'm going to stop going to this church or, whatever. Like, is that really what it's about? You know?
The problem is there's both of those forces like happening at the same time for sure. And when I think about it, it's like, okay, then it is incumbent on the leadership. Like it's your responsibility. It's not the people's responsibility to like get it together. Like you're supposed to be building those people. So it's like, these are things that we need to address. And like, for me, like if I was a pastor and I felt like it got to a point where it was so like a show every week, I'd literally just be like, we're going to have worship with one acoustic guitar and a few singers because it's not about the lights. It's not about the drums. It's not about anything but like trying to like love on the Lord.
I think it'd be way more profound, especially when big churches, if they would do that.
Dude, there's a really cool story.
Just a reset every once in a while.
There's a really cool book called Clear the Stage. And it was the same kind of concept. There was a mega church down in Texas, and the pastor just felt like it was becoming too much like just show. And he basically from stage, like, just said, we're just going to stand here in silence until something happens, the pastor. And it was like, they were just like, you could hear a pin drop. It was so awkward, like 2 minutes. And then I don't remember how long it went, but eventually like some crazy stuff started popping off.
Like what?
I'd have to look at the exact things, but it's probably more of like what they would describe as like, whether it's speaking tongues or like the Holy Spirit just kind of starting to really
people singing,
drop bombs on people.
Have either of you ever experienced that?
What?
Speaking in tongues?
Yeah. The hard part, I mean,
no, like yourself, you have?
Well, yeah. I mean, yes.
The hardest, okay, so I'll like, say I never really felt like the Lord literally took over, and this is probably going to, I've never said this before. I've never literally felt
way to go, Gabby.
Like the Lord himself took over my tongue, and I was just like, la, 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 la. Like I've never had that. And I don't know, because like we grew up and thinking they were just like, just start with a syllable, and just kind of see where it goes. Then you're just like, and you just throw in another like, and it's like, and this is maybe super sacrilegious, and I just like I'm just trying to be real about it.
I mean, your perspective is important because a lot of people feel this way, and you have to hash this out because there are people out there that they're just saying like, man, I felt the same way.
So you're saying you just faked it to please them?
Well, I don't know if I faked it. Like, I just don't know. I was doing what they said.
Yeah, an AG.
And you're just like, is this me? Is this God? Like, because of that, it was so ambiguous where I was just like, I mean, I would know if I was literally just like, blah, 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 like without able to think.
So what was your experience then?
Well, it's very similar. I mean, at camp, the same thing. You know, it was just like, yeah.
Like, it's never just, so for you guys, it's never just happened out of no, so that, because I guess that's what I'm imagining.
No. It's not like the Spirit came over me and I just started boom, which I guess that happens with some people. I don't. What happens is
I want to hear from those people.
What happens is
me too.
In camp, yeah, no, for sure. And Eric, maybe we could ask him that question. It'd be good. Like,
do you think he's experienced that?
I think. Yeah, well, he's definitely. I don't know about him personally, but I know maybe. But I know he's.
That's what I'm saying. I want to talk to somebody
he's been to a lot of.
Sure, has felt that.
Well, he's been to a lot of different countries where he sees crazy shit happen.
Yeah.
Spiritual stuff, like stuff that you wouldn't experience here because there's so much noise. It's crazy. I mean, yeah, I'm sure he can talk more about some of his experiences. But the thing is, what they do in the AG is really, it's just like, you know. Some people a lot of people will naturally hold back, like when they're afraid, you know, and He's like, oh, is this really like this thought of a prophecy? Is this real? Is this just me? I'm not going to say anything. So in order to combat that, basically the AG, like a lot of times this will happen at church camp where like you'll have a night where people will say like, hey, you know, maybe this is your gift. Like, so why don't we all try it and see like who really has this? You know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of the approach they take is like, all right, instead of feeling ashamed about saying something, why don't we all just say something and see what happens, you know? So it's like, that was kind of their approach to it. But to a lot of churches outside of that, non-denominational, a lot of churches don't do that. Don't really have anyone that speaks in tongues. If they do, it's only like when they're praying, and it's not like from the stage, you know what I mean? Because it's just like, it would really throw a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely that out there, but it is hard, like, because all you're doing, I mean, it's not sacrilegious or any of that to bring any of this stuff up. Like, I felt uncomfortable. Like, I didn't even know what it was. Like, I didn't know if it was me. I don't know if it was God. Like, what? I mean, I felt like it was me because they were telling me.
You're like, am I freestyle rapping right now?
Well, yeah. That's what it turned into.
Well, and like, so another thing that's interesting, and I probably need to do a little more research, is there is a difference, I guess, in scripture between like the gift of tongues and just like the like heavenly prayer language, which like I think, as far as I understand it, the Bible says that everyone has like a heavenly prayer language, and then some people have like the gift of tongues. But like when I think about like Pentecost, and when I think about like what happened in Acts, it's like these people got blasted by the Holy Spirit, and then they went outside and they started to speak in other tongues that like from that day in that dialect. Like they weren't speaking some gibberish language that no one knows. Like it was literally just like, those are Galileans. How in the world are they speaking my language? They don't know my language.
Someone else's language that they didn't know.
And
all of a sudden they knew it.
And it wasn't like they listened to them pray in their language that they didn't know.
So that would definitely be speaking in tongues supernatural.
Only turn it into like this heavenly language that no one understands.
Which, I mean, maybe there's merit in that. Like, I'm not totally like opposed to that idea, because I think it's weird for some people to wrap their head around who haven't experienced that.
That's like the supernatural aspect to me. Cause I'm just like, when I hear someone, like, let's say someone comes from like Asia, and they are like fresh off the boat, they don't know any English, and then all of a sudden they just say the most immaculate prayer in English, I'm literally just gonna be like, there's something supernatural happening.
Sure. And I think that
it's almost like a witness to the supernatural versus like gibberish that you're just like, you could have just made that up.
No, you're right. And I think that there should be more attention on the difference between those two.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I think there's power in just like, hey, if I want to mumble something and I just want to talk to God, like I just want to pray or talk to, like, I think that's fine. I mean, you don't force that on other people or make other people feel uncomfortable with it. But if you're by yourself, or like if you're in a group and you know it's okay and you just want to pray that way, and you know, like, you know, everyone's cool, or you just want to do it and you feel comfortable in that, fine. Yeah. But the thing, like, so because this happens this happens outside the church too. We just don't really recognize. So like Sigur, you ever listen to them? No? Okay. So they're a band, and they have like really flowy, inspirational kind of sounding music. Some of it's dark, some of it's, you know, whatever. It's like emotional music. But all their lyrics, they say all their lyrics are gibberish. So basically you listen to these songs and you kind of like read into it, like what you're feeling and your emotion, and you imagine what they may be saying. It's kind of like that same thing. Like, why can't we just talk to God that way? I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well, there's a verse that talks about like he understands like the groans of the Spirit. So it's like there is something where like God understands like what you're trying to do and say. So there's merit in that.
So I think that's valuable, but that needs to be taught separately from like, hey, this isn't really speaking in tongues. It's like kind of like your way of expressing yourself to the Lord, which is fine. But just know it isn't the same as like kind of what the Bible describes
the gift
here.
Of speaking, like
the Bible describes this in this way. It's not that, but you know, hey, sure, if that's your thing and you feel comfortable doing that, fine. It's like the same people waving flags and stuff.
Sure,
that makes
when it's done right. I actually kind of like it.
Not flags?
Not like.
Okay, Justin.
No. I'm talking about like, you ever watched like a Bethel service or even like Jesus Image where they have like actual girl. Not doesn't have to be girls, but usually it's girls that are legitimate dancers.
You're like, well, they have actual girls, like
they have girls there.
Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, like doing the flags. Justin's like, I like that. Why can't we just bring that into church?
No, but like, where they actually get more of like the streamers, and it really is like artistic. Like it is like I like it. But like,
I'm talking about
like
the
random
crazy
people running around the crowds,
the
with
crazy
like
people, and then the tambourines,
the tribe of Judah, like running around. Like we used to have that. I'm sorry if that's you. I'm not trying to offend people.
No,
but,
well, it's distracting, and that makes me more uncomfortable than people speaking in tongues. Like, well, I mean, granted, that's something I've been used to growing up. But
another challenge is, I think, something that I fought and dealt with personally, because the fellowship that I grew up in, denomination, but they call it a fellowship, so we'll call it a fellowship,
of course,
because it's a cooperative fellowship. So the way I grew up, it was like you weren't allowed to be a minister, or like you weren't allowed to be like licensed or ordained if you if you hadn't spoken in tongues. So it like creates this like bar of like, bro, you ain't getting no work here.
That's absurd.
Unless you, and then with that, it was like, and you're also never allowed to drink ever, no questions. Like, but like they would just make these, and I understand the intent behind it, because they're just like, okay, we want our spiritual leaders to have they want to have that, gift from the Holy Spirit versus, and then also, not do things that could potentially put you in compromising positions. Like whatever. I understand the intent behind it, but
we talk about,
it doesn't work when you just try to control people.
We talk about no judgment on this podcast, and we don't have all the answers. We're idiots. We don't have any of the answers, really.
Big facts.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, that's absurd.
I'm R-worded.
That's 100% absurd, and that's a fact. Like that what you were just talking
probably
about.
A scenario where you shouldn't use that word.
Oh, we took a turn.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
He said big facts. I'm R-worded.
The other thing that I was going back to the volunteer thing, right? It's just.
Sorry. Right. Okay, here.
Continue. I'm sorry.
Are we done? I forget what I was gonna say, guys.
Oh, sorry.
Gosh, I was doing too much active listening to your bullshit.
Oh man.
So, okay. So
stuck in the quicksand.
along the volunteer thing,
say the dicks.
right? Okay, Justin, stop it. Just stop. All right, can't get anywhere. So back to the volunteer thing. I'm just gonna mute your mic in a second. There's only 3 of us, so then I would have to.
I'm bringing it together. Sorry, guys.
All right. So back to the volunteer thing. A lot of churches will also pay their people, right? They'll contract musicians.
Correct.
So how do you feel about that?
Oh man, that one's really tricky, because that happened to me where I was going to a church and I was just serving, playing on Sundays, playing guitar, singing, whatever, and for free. Like I didn't expect money. I was just volunteering. And then they came to me like 6 months down the road and they're like, yo, we want to start paying you. And I was just like,
oh no.
Paying you because they expect you to put even more time in?
No. Just it was literally done. Just like,
that's
hey,
how I would have thought.
Yeah.
I would have been like, no thanks.
Well, because I was already
all right,
doing.
well, what do you want?
Yeah, no, right.
Yeah,
I'm always paranoid.
Yeah.
When people tell me they get a raise at their job, I'm like, that's
about
fun.
to suck for you.
Yeah, it's about to suck. Yeah, really.
No, I mean, honestly, it didn't come with any more responsibilities or expectations. Or if it did, I was just completely oblivious and not willing to do anything more. But either way,
yeah.
So they came to me and I was like, this is the best thing ever. And then within a matter of maybe a year, 18 months, like and there's an element too where it's like I wasn't actively like checking on my heart and really like taking good inventory of like where I was spiritually and what different influences and things were doing to me. But it naturally over time, it just turned it into a job. And then
anytime there's money exchanged for that, it's a job.
And then, when it's not something you genuinely like, it felt like you couldn't get away because now you're just like financially obligated. Like they're giving me a paycheck. And then
that is tough because some
and
churches
you just get used to the extra money, and I'm like, dude, there's nothing I can do.
Some churches
anywhere
do that on purpose,
to get this much money for this little work.
Right. Some churches do it on purpose where they're just like, all right, we got him now. It's just like if he steps out of line, we can just remind him that we're giving him money. You know what I mean? And that's
or
a very
give him a few weeks off, and then all of a sudden
blunt way.
The money's different, and he's like, all right, I need to be back.
That's a very blunt way of putting it, but a lot of churches will do that, where it's just like, especially when it comes to like their long time serving volunteers.
Dude, because I was,
but a lot of churches, especially bigger ones, don't do it that way. Either you're on staff,
right,
or you're a contract musician.
Well, the problem is I was part of like smaller like church plants, and it was the same thing. Like we would have to pay musicians to get them in, and we just didn't have. It was just the hardest thing for us to find drummers. Like you can get away with like not having, you can get away with not having a lot of instruments. I mean, you get multi-tracks. Like you can get away with a lot, but you got to have live drums if you want to do the big thing.
Right.
And we would just have the hardest time getting consistent drummers, and all the time, like it wasn't like the hardest time, but all the time we would just like last minute, all of a sudden the drummer bails, and then you're just like, obviously the pastor like wants you like scrambling to find a replacement. And like I would be at a place where I'm just like, look, bro, I thought God was leading this thing, and if our drummer just dipped out 24 hours or 12 hours before, it's like maybe we're not supposed to have a drummer this week.
Yeah.
And it's like at some point, because that's the point I got to. It's like, dude, if the drummer bails, cool, we're going acoustic. Like I'm not stressing over this.
Yeah, and you know it, like Jesus Image or something, that's how they would handle it.
Yeah,
they just wouldn't have a drummer, right?
And so a place like that, it's like, you know, the way they built it up, now it's like, dude, they don't have any issues. And really they use,
sure, I guess
they
what
might
I'm saying,
pay their musicians because
I guess what I'm saying,
literally the same people
in
every
theory,
time.
I'm sure they wouldn't have a problem not having drums.
Right.
I mean, if
for sure.
They wouldn't force something. I mean,
100%.
granted, their pool is so deep that wouldn't happen. But you know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, it wouldn't be something they stress about.
Yeah.
For sure.
Because the right heart's behind it.
Right.
So, yeah, and really for me, most of the time, it's just like contracting people to fill in spots that we can't get volunteers for. That's what a lot of churches do. Then there are other churches, especially in like the gospel community, that such a high bar is set for good musicians that they just always pay everyone.
Yeah.
And everyone is paid, and it's just like there is a high expectation if you want to get in that group.
Well, dude, there's also
we had a guy come from a church like that I'm, you know, I'm friends with, and he was just like, you know, dude, it's just I could sense the stress, like because he would like years ago before he was just at our church, he was like going back and he would serve at this church, serve at our church, and he would just tell me like, man, it is so like all this like stuff, like all the like spiritual like gospel chords and like all the runs and stuff like that. That's not just like coloration of the music and like, you know, just stuff that makes the music more like, oh, that's sweet. It's expected. It's not just an add-on. It's like it's expected that you go there and do all that.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're out, and they will get a new guy in and pay him to do it.
Yeah, it sucks.
And it's just like that sucks. But it's like the way that community operates, right?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of in that gospel community, like because the music talent is off the charts. You know,
Right.
I mean, they're incredibly talented people, but at the same time, it's just like creates this like almost this negative energy around serving, where it's just, you know, it's just like, well, if this expectation isn't met, then, you know, you're replaceable kind of thing. And it's just very apparent in that situation, but it's almost the same thing you were saying right before, where it's just like, all right, we're going to get the guy that's better to come and do this because, you know, you're okay, but you're not good enough.
Another big wrinkle with this whole thing is like we're in Orlando, where you've got Disney, you've got Universal, you've got like this massive like hub where people come. So there is a massive pool of like musicians. Where, I mean, I would have people I could hit up, and we would just find like this person through this person who like was involved with like the Holy Land experience, and like this person with this person who like he plays at like Disney like sometimes. And it's just like there's so many people that you can pull from. And then like the danger in my mind with some of that is, okay, so here's another interesting question, because I don't really know that I have an opinion one way or the other, but like, so like a Jesus Image, like, dude, you're not getting on that stage unless like your character has been flushed out. Like it is a big deal to like, and so, cause they believe that like, according to scripture, like the worshipers are like, bro, there's a way to live and a way to worship him rightly. And that's like that, they would go back to like the tribes of Israel and like the tribe of the Levites, right? And it's like their whole lives, bro. Like they didn't do like the work and the warring, right? Like their lives was worship. And then like they started at, I forget what age, but it was like literally their whole lives.
So how does Jesus image view the Old Testament?
They would say that Jesus appears in every single word of the Bible. Like even in the Old Testament, like he is like like Michael, the lead guy over there, Michael Koulianos, incredible leader and orator, and just the way he teaches is insane. But he would take an Old Testament story and then he would just tell it, and then he'd be like, and that part, that was Jesus in the story. So they would believe that like the whole thing is about him, and he is in the Old Testament. Like even, I would have to go back and find more specific examples.
That's interesting.
They would believe like he was Jacob's ladder type of a thing. Like, so they believe that.
So when it comes to that, like, cause there's like people who serve in our communities where they're just not, like I know people on our worship team that I serve with, they're not blameless.
Sure.
They have sin. They just,
they're not perfect people.
There's normal people.
But yeah. But I guess contrast that with the other polar opposite of like, yo, like we'll bring in anyone, like if they got the chops, and like we need a drummer. I don't care who this guy is,
if he's
what
drunk,
he does in his personal life,
putting up, on Sundays.
if he's bringing the heat, no questions asked. Because I've been in situations where it was kind of like that. Don't ask, don't tell type of thing. Just like, hey man, if he's talented, I mean, maybe not every week, but it's nice to have him if we need him, type of thing.
Maybe not every week. Well, it's either yes or no. It's like, yeah, it's either every week or, no, we don't have him at all.
Yeah. We had a rotation of probably like, I don't know, let's call it like 3 to 4 guys, but none of them were part of the church.
I guess what I'm saying is it's like, if you're going to have him volunteer at all, like, you can't just be like, all right, well, we'll just use him sometimes, and then it's okay if he lives his life this way.
Well, and these people are always paid too, so I wouldn't even consider them volunteers. They're just more contractors.
Yeah, if they're contractors, I wouldn't even see an issue.
But I guess that's my question, though.
Like everyone,
like from a spiritual perspective, like if you don't have a drummer, do you contract someone to just come in not knowing anything about him? Do you think that's a big deal?
That's a good question.
Or
I don't know.
is it like we view the stage and worship as a very precious thing, and it's like we're not just bringing anyone in here to do this kind of a thing? It's tough.
I don't know. That is definitely an interesting question. I've thought about that before too. So I've thought about
You flexing on the camera?
I wanted to be extra offensive today.
Yeah. You just
Sorry. Was that a deep conversation?
No, now that he yelled into the mic, the compressor's gonna go nuts.
Oh.
Hopefully it doesn't mess up the whole track.
Wow, Justin.
Wow.
It's my fault actually. Wow. I turned him up.
Yeah, you set a new peak. It's great. All right.
Lo siento.
Yeah, lo siento.
Mi amor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a good conversation.
Lo siento, no siento.
I think it's a good conversation to have. I like all of these. I think all these are great conversations to have.
For sure.
So it's fun. I'm gonna have to chop this up a little bit because of the whatever breaks we had and some of the BS talk we had in the middle, but it'll be good.
Yeah, I'm about to hit that little boy's room horde.
Yeah, me too. But
why do we call it the little boy's room?
No one does, I don't think.
That's real.
It's a thing.
You just did it.
Real creepy, isn't it?
It's a thing, isn't it?
I'm gonna hit the little boy's room real quick. What? You're a grown man. What does that mean?
Maybe it's not a thing. Maybe I'm a pervert. I don't know.
Hoping little boys are in there.
Okay.
Is that not a thing? Do people not say that?
Okay.
You're making my job real hard today.
I love that.
We're pushing the envelope today. Let's go.
I'm not editing. I'm not editing any of that.
I regret nothing.
Never.
Maybe I'm a pervert.
No regrets.
No regrets.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, thanks everyone who's still listening, and we love you. We'll see you next time. Adios.
The real ones.